easy to talk about the upside of property investment. You just need to turn on the news to see a story about rising house prices, negative gearing, and someone getting rich off property in Australia. But there's a dirty little secret about property investment that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And that's why we're here today. Today, I'm going to tell you about what happens when property investing goes horribly wrong and just how much money it can cost you. Because sadly, it happened to me.
Fool of a took.
You see this place? Looks pretty nice, right? Awesome location, close to the beach. It's ready for someone to move in for that sea change kind of lifestyle. And that's what I thought too when I bought it back in Feb 2011. Now when I look at it, all I see is $63,784 down the toilet, along with 12 months of blood, sweat, tears, and stress. And the reality is, if I didn't panic sell at the very bottom of the market, I could have made over $500,000 profit gain from that place. Yeah, I've learned a lot of painful lessons from that place, and today I want to share with you those lessons. But before I do, make sure you give us a bit of a thumbs up or a like and subscribe if you want to find out how I torched all my cash. So let's jump in. So let's start from the beginning. Back in 2011, I was moving back from Brisbane to Sydney with my now wife. We've been living the city life in Sydney over the past couple of years and thought it was time for a bit of a change. So we thought we'd head up north to the Gold Coast and live that Instagram life. A quick swim at the beach in the morning, a bit of laptop during the day, and sunset drinks at night. It was going to be a dream. The reality is we weren't looking for a forever home. We just wanted a place that we could enjoy for a couple of years, turn it to an investment property, and reap the profits. And after a few months of searching, I found the perfect place. It was in a great location, it was close to the shops, and pretty much the next suburb along. It was a little suburb called Miami on the Gold Coast. So why did I choose this spot? Well, you see, the Commonwealth Games was only a couple of years down the track. And I knew that there was a massive potential for capital growth on the Gold Coast because of this. The other thing I liked was it was only a few suburbs away from Pacific Fair Shopping Centre at Broadbeach, which had been slated for a $600 million redevelopment. How could I lose? It was a 6-minute walk to the beach and a 20-minute drive from the Gold Coast Airport. Compared to the next suburb north, it was about $100,000 to $200,000 cheaper, and it was a little bit less developed than Burleigh, so it sold for quite a bit less of a premium. For me, it was the ultimate Goldilocks suburb. The spot could not be more perfect. And the house? It was the worst house on the best street. Listen, it's not the kind of place you want to go and raise a family in, but for a young couple like Monique and I looking for some quick returns on investment, it was the perfect renovating for growth strategy. It seemed like an easy way to build equity if I knew what I was doing. But I didn't know what I was doing, and I paid the price, literally. But we'll get to that in a minute. So I knew that was the right house and I decided to put an offer. It was listed for $469,000, but with some shrewd negotiating tactics, I was able to buy the place for $420 grand. I couldn't be more stoked. I was sick of the Sydney city life and I was ready to be a beach bum. Literally, the first thing I bought after I settled the place was my own surfboard. It was going to be perfect. Once we moved into the house, it was renovation time. Yeah, I knew there was a big job ahead of us. It had been rented by 5 young guys for the last 7 years. And boy, you could tell it. I doubt any of those boys knew even what a toilet brush was, let alone how to use one. But it didn't matter. I was ready to get to work and I was prepared to roll up my sleeves. But I wasn't prepared. I thought I'd done everything right. During the settlement process, I did a quick back of the napkin estimation of renovation costs. I thought I'd need to spend maybe $20,000 to $30,000 adding a new kitchen, refurbishing the bathroom, and putting in a quick lick of paint. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Simple money, I was gonna get rich. I even had my mate Rob, who works as a tiler but does a bit of stuff with builders, to come over and reconfirm my quote. He was pretty confident that he reckoned the work could be done for about 20 to 30 grand. Sweet, right? Yeah, when I got an actual builder to give me a proper quote, that number started to creep up. The first hiccup, the builder thought the bathroom and other parts of the house had been built with asbestos, a word that should instill fear even into the most staunchest of renovators. You see, as I learned, asbestos is almost the most perfect building material. It's cheap, durable, it's incredibly fire resistant. And for those reasons, it was all the rage in building across Australia over the last 50 years. But there's one small, very small downside to asbestos: particles. They are completely nasty business. And if you get in your lungs, you've got a pretty good chance of getting cancer. Listen, it's not a huge issue if you plan on leaving the asbestos in place, but if you're gonna tear down the walls like I was going to, it can get really nasty. So the builder literally donned on a hazmat suit, collected a sample to see if it was suspicious, and he was correct. There was asbestos in the bathroom bit of the garage, and safely removing the asbestos would add $5,000 to my already tight budget. But I decided to press on. Listen, I've been eating baked beans for most of my meals the last couple of months, so I thought I could make it work. So we started the renovations, and this is where I made my second mistake. My initial builder's quote included the bare minimum. I adopted a bit of a she'll be right attitude, and it didn't include stuff like tiles, gyprock, carpet, door handles, fittings, you know, most of the stuff that makes a place habitable. I kind of figured I'd just get it along the way as I'd kind of budget and I could afford it. And that's why I was wrong. Because here's an easy lesson for anyone that's wanting to get into property investment is make sure that your estimate for renovation includes everything you're going to need to make the place habitable. The true cost of a renovation goes way beyond the structural work, and all the little things actually turn out not to be so little. In fact, as you'll see in a minute, the cost of things like my tiles, carpets, fittings cost actually more than the structural stuff themselves. And in my case, it was a lot more. So we completed the initial structural work, asbestos and all, and that's when I ran out of money. Not a big deal, right? We'd done our renovations, so surely the property would be worth more. We could revalue the home, pull out some equity, and worry about the final details later. So wrong. So as it turns out, the bank won't revalue an incomplete renovation. And when you look at this picture, I couldn't blame them. So we had to scrounge what money we could. We took out credit cards, my girlfriend, my wife took out a personal loan, and we managed to rustle up the money to complete the renovations, which ended up costing us a total of $92,000, more than triple our initial budget. Without getting too much into the details, I can say this was an enormously stressful period in my life. Imagine this, juggling 2 credit cards, 2 personal loans, a home loan, and being chased by unpaid bills by the builder is not a great place to be. Luckily, we got through it mostly in one piece. And with the renovations complete, we were able to get the house revalued at $510,000 and take out some of the equity, pay off those credit cards, loans, and bills. I originally paid $420,000 on the purchase. At 90%, I borrowed $378,000. So those months later, after I'd done the valuation, the bank valued the property at that point at $510,000, almost a $90,000 gain. So again, the bank would lend me up to 90% of this value, or $459,000. The increase of loan meant that I was able to increase the loan by $81,000, which was able to go and pay off some of those personal loans and different things. If I hadn't spent that money, this is called using equity. So I could have used this $80,000 in equity, up to 90% of the new property value, towards a new investment or a bunch of other things. Instead, I was paying back the builder. So we lived another day. Renovation's done, right? I'm making my money, 510, life is good. Well, all that was left now was to spend another $30,000 on the outside of the house. And we were set for our sea change dream. Well, that dream didn't last super long, given I wasn't working on the Gold Coast, but instead in Brisbane, 70 kilometers away. I was leaving home at 6 a.m, but I wasn't heading to the beach for a quick surf, no. Instead, I was driving an hour and a half to my job in Brisbane, and I was getting home at 7 p.m. most days. No sunset drinks for me either. Sure, we had the weekends, but by the time the weekend rolled around, all I wanted to do was sleep and recover. Remember that surfboard I taught you about at the beginning of the video? I used it once. The situation was so unsustainable, we decided to move to Brisbane and rent the place out. So it wasn't all bad, right? We'd built up some equity, we were getting a decent rental return for a while, until things around the house started to break. Because of our tight budget, we'd cheaped out on a bunch of things and they didn't really last. And these extra costs were things that we just couldn't afford at the time. We were close to breaking point financially. The final nail in the coffin was when I read an article about the Gold Coast property market tanking. I was already teetering on the edge of financial despair, and that was the last straw. So I decided I didn't want to lose more money. I wanted to sell, and I made a grand profit of minus $60,000. And that was the end of it. Until I decided to make this video for you guys, and it turns out the people who bought the place from me did absolutely nothing and ended up selling it for $790,000 in 2018. Oof. And just out of curiosity, I wanted to check out what it was worth today. So let's have a look what it's worth. Oh gosh. Right. Well, that's when I bought it. And that's when I sold it, and that's why I should have kept it. First mistake, not budgeting accurately for renovation. Here's something I know now that I didn't know back then. Renovations always cost more than what you expect. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a lot more. When you're budgeting for renovation, make sure you plan everything you need to make the place habitable. You need to be able to live there. Make sure that you exactly know what's included in your quote from the builder, And even if you think you've got everything covered, add 20% of contingencies as a buffer. You'll genuinely thank me for that one. Overextending yourself financially is not fun. Learn from my mistakes, make sure you've got a budget before you start knocking down walls. Next mistake, underestimating how much impact your commute time has on your quality of life. I thought I could handle long commutes. I'd just listen to a podcast and it was all good. I thought that living the Gold Coast life on the weekends would more than make up for the long hours during the week. For me, it didn't. When you're planning on buying a place to live in, make sure it fits in with the lifestyle you have, not for the one you wish you had. And my third and final mistake was letting my emotions in your property decide your decisions. Yes, I was burned out by the hard work and stress of renovating a place. And yes, the maintenance costs were an issue. But if I'd held onto the place, I'd be making a video about telling you how I made $500,000 in property investment rather than how much I lost. Well, that's it for today, guys. Have you done a renovation? Have you lost some money? Would love to hear about it. Hit us up in the comments below. And if you need any help with finance, or if you want to learn some more lessons, hit us up at huntergalloway.com.au. We're a home for home buyers across Australia. Until next time, see you later.